Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 112, recording on Friday night, September 12th. You guys will probably hear this on Saturday or on Sunday. This is a preview-ish show ahead of the Vikings-Falcons game on Sunday Night Football, which will be an absolute blast. The guest for you is a guy named John Ledyard. If you haven't heard of him, he has an awesome Substack and podcast, Audible's Analytics, where he talks about football, focusing usually on the Bucs and the Steelers. He also co-hosts with Ollie Connolly, a previous guest, a podcast, called The Read Optional, which for my money is one of the best pods for those who really care about the inner workings of what's going on in the NFL. Talked all things Falcons, Vikings with John, and it's a fun conversation. Think you guys will really enjoy it. If you're new here and watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can rate, review, or do all of the things you got to do there to help us out, which we're really grateful for. This show is presented by First Resource Bank. If you haven't heard of it, that's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. They've got branches everywhere, Vikings fans. It's run by three guys and a bunch of other great people, Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson. They love the team. They're going to be in the building Sunday night. Cannot wait to catch up with those guys. If you're new here and you don't know me, I cover the Vikings for The Athletic day-to-day, stories all over the place. I'm actually going to do a live Q&A on the Instagram at Alec Lewis Show on Sunday, talking everything in the lead up to Sunday night's matchup. Obviously, congrats are out to JJ McCarthy and his fiance Katya and the family for their new baby boy, Rome Micah McCarthy. But yeah, we're going to get back to football. Without further ado, here is my conversation with John Ledyard about the Vikings-Falcons game. All right, John, welcome to the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate you hopping on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm excited to be on here talking ball with you. It is good to start to get into some of these team-focused shows as the season goes on, I think, because sometimes Ollie and I, we watch all this tape of these different teams, and I'm Steelers and Bucs focused, and then we do a little blurb on them, and I'm man, I'd love to just have a podcast for all 32 teams if it was possible, but it isn't, so I'm glad people like you are doing this because it's a great place for Vikings fans to be able to go and get really good quality content, and so I think that's a blessing to them, hopefully.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I had Ollie on probably 2 months ago before the season, and he went for probably 9 minutes talking about Brian Flores and why he loves him as much as he does. And I had people commenting this guy was phenomenal, so passionate, loves Brian Flores. And then as I listened to you guys' show from earlier this week, Ollie what is the most interesting thing from week one? And he starts with Brian Flores. I'm not going to start with Brian Flores. I'm going to start where you started with the Falcons defense. You watched them last year, you watched them in years past, and then you watched them in week one. So my question to you would be, what was different to you in watching them this year with Jeff Ulbrich, their defensive coordinator, working with Raheem?
I think one of the biggest things that's different is they feel like they understand a little bit more how to play in the modern NFL, what works defensively in the modern NFL. Well, a couple things need to be in place, and this hasn't always been in place for Jeff Ulbrich defenses, is understanding what it looks like to live in the pressure world, and then how to get from the pressure world to the simulation or appearance of being in the pressure world to your four-man pass rush stuff. Now, the Falcons don't have a great four-man pass rush. That part is still – that's what they hope they fixed in the draft, and it hasn't happened yet, and we'll see, obviously. I don't think it's terrible, but they really – that's the thing that they're missing. But just looking at it from the approach from okay, how are we going to build this thing, that was the part that I found to be somewhat encouraging, is that they're definitely capable of living a little bit more in the sim world because they have guys that can mug up and drop and get to spots and then be able to pick up route combinations, pick up players out of the backfield or out of the slot, things like that. Divine Diablo is a new addition to that team, and he is a new type of player. If you look at the guys they've had in the past, they've really been trying at this linebacker thing. The guys they found are kind of they tested great, but then when you watch them, they don't play with the twitch and the suddenness and the feel and coverage and in space that you really want. So Troy Anderson, who's hurt now for them, whoever it's been, Caden Ellis has been sort of like a hybrid type of player for them. He's still in that lineup. They've had some other guys that have been there in the past in the linebacker rotation. Nate Landman was a good player for them, good early downs player, but modern NFL approach, if that's what you're looking for, harder to live in the type of world they want to be in with a player like that, a linebacker. So that makes a big difference. You add 2 rookies in, Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman. Watch the difference in the twitch and explosiveness of those guys moving around their defense, the jumps they get on the ball, the instincts they have, how fast they're playing. I'm not talking about timed stuff, just talking about how fast they're playing. In today's league, you really need, how do we wreak havoc up front, force the ball underneath, rally and tackle to the football, or rally and play the ball in the windows, the throwing windows that are underneath. That's really how successful defenses are doing it. You have to be able to do it with 4, and then at times you have to be able to change it up and go into the blitz pressure world and be able to thrive there. And I think Atlanta's just got more ingredients to be able to do that well. They're not, of all the pieces for sure, they got to figure out the 4-man rush. They got to figure out who's their guys, who can win 1v1, who's going to play inside for these guys long term. They've got a lot of questions still, but they were really far away. I felt like last year was under-discussed how far away they were talent-wise going into the year. And I think they've taken a step forward, even if we're probably going to see lots of ups and downs this season.
It did amaze me just going through it because, I'm so locked into the Vikings and my day-to-day, but you're thinking about all of the resources that they spent on that side. And it is third-round pick safety Xavier Watts, and it is nickel Billy Bowman. They're paying Leonard Floyd, and they're trading next year's first for some reason for James Pierce, and they're drafting Jalen Walker. I mean, it was an all-hands on deck approach. Divine Diablo, who I should have mentioned there, who they added at linebacker. What I was thinking going through the film and thinking about this forthcoming game Sunday night is the more times, and this is my opinion, I'd be curious what you think of it, the more times the Vikings find themselves in 3rd and 7, where then you've got Divine Diablo mugging, Caden Ellis mugging, who's dropping, who's coming. Oh, here comes nickel pressure, Billy Bowman, and the other 2 guys are dropping. Like, the more they are living in that world Sunday night, probably the more the more dynamic this Falcons defense, still devoid of the talent up front that we're kind of talking about, the more difficult they become. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, whenever you can throw a lot of different looks at a rookie, I shouldn't say rookie, but essentially a rookie quarterback and J.J. McCarthy, whenever you can do a lot of things like that, confuse the picture, change the picture pre and post snap, really what you're doing is just slowing down their whole process or speeding up their whole process. But if you slow them down, you're going to get there. You're going to get home and you're going to get sacks. If you speed them up, you're going to get the ball coming out, and that's when Xavier Watts and Jesse Bates can eat, is when the ball comes out. It's unsure, he's forcing it, or things like that. So either way, you're trying to get one of those 2 outcomes, and both are good for you, basically. You just don't want him to play comfortably. And honestly, I know he won Player of the Week, so I'm not trying to slander him, but like he was really struggling through most of that game. The funniest Player of the Week ever. I know Vikings fans will probably get mad at me for saying that, but he was really struggling through a lot of that game. And credit to him and his mental fortitude that in his first game at Soldier Field, like all that atmosphere and stuff, that he could get it together the way that he did and make a couple plays down the stretch was clutch. And I was a big McCarthy guy pre-draft too, so I'm a little invested in this part of the process for them. But generally speaking, I think they're going to look at things that Dennis Allen did, especially early in the game, and they're going to say, we can do those things. We can do those things, and we can finish. Every defense coordinator thinks we can finish the job where they didn't. But, like, we know they had him, and they let him off the hook. And so I think that's what they'll think of watching back that tape, and we'll see if it's true or not and how fast McCarthy learns some things. Totally normal to have the types of struggles he had in his first game against one of the best defensive minds in the league. I think he gets another one in Raheem Morris here. I think Raheem Morris has been a really underrated defensive mind throughout his career, and so I think that they'll have another chance to be able to do that. But when the picture changes a lot, pre and post snap, it definitely offers real challenges for a young quarterback. Not so much in terms of he can come to the sideline and maybe tell you what happened, everything. He can explain it. But when it's in the moment and the bullets fly, you have to make a decision that quick. That's where it becomes difficult. Now, Chicago's got a much better rush group, and they don't even have a great rush group, but their group is going to be better at getting home, I think, than what you'll see in Atlanta. So we'll see. I mean, Vikings going to have their work cut out from as an offensive line as they have, not being at full strength perhaps, but like I think that's going to be definitely a lot of work for them.
Yeah, it will be interesting without Christian Darrisaw again to see if Justin School can hold up. I mean, it could be a spot where this is the the Falcons narrative coming out will be like, this is why we drafted James Pierce. I mean, it could be, this is why we traded like that. This would be an opportunity for that to surface. One of the guys, I mean, you mentioned Xavier Watts, and I was on the radio Friday morning, and I people listening were probably like, why is this guy talking about this third-round Notre Dame rookie as much as I was on Minnesota radio? But going through the film, and there were at least two instances where, I mean, there were near interceptions. He's reading the ball so fast, reading the field, it seems so fast. And I go back to pre-draft. I'm curious how people evaluate these players. And I have the scouting notes pulled up. You had best out of pedal safety in the class, breaks on the ball are excellent, arrives at the catch point with purpose. I mean, it's one game, so it's one game sample, but it really looks like this guy can see it and can fly around. And so part of me would wonder what drew you to him so much pre-draft, and to see him have that first week performance, how validating or excited were you probably watching that?
Pretty exciting, I think. I mean, the instincts, right? That was really the thing that drew me. I just felt like he played really fast. He saw the game really fast. He's really just an aggressive player, and I think that's one of the most important things about playing safeties. You just have to be aggressive. I mean, obviously, some guys over the years have been too aggressive and you get burned and things like that, but generally speaking, I don't really see that as typically as big of an issue. And so to me, that's really where it comes down to with him, is I just think he sees and feels the game really, really well. And as a safety in today's league, think about all the rotations, right? Like if you're playing in any sort of a modern defensive scheme, you're rotating down, you're in the slot, you're mugged up, you're on the line of scrimmage, you're moving back. And so people are looking at things a lot like like what's his testing speed, all those kind of things. I just don't really know how many opportunities. Like, you're not necessarily going to put him as a single eye free safety and have him just roaming sideline to sideline. Those days are sort of kind of over. Like, we don't get a lot of those press schemes where it's just like one guy's deep, we're just playing cover one all the time, he's got to be Earl Thomas back there. So people are still kind of looking at that type of player, and then they're saying, well, are you a box safety? Well, that's not really it. Everybody's just got to wear a bunch of hats in today's league. That's just how it works. Like, you're just all chess pieces as safeties for the most part of most schemes. And so to me, I just thought you could move him around. He would understand the coverage rotations. He could find guys in coverage. I thought his man coverage stuff was pretty good when he had to do it, so there was a little bit of versatility there. But just the physicality to play the flats, you have to be able to do that in today's league. You have to be able to run Phil. He did that. And then he just was an unbelievable athlete, and he didn't have like an unbelievable frame for the position. I think people got caught up in that stuff a little bit, but he just played fast. So I just felt like it was never going to be something that really hurt him in his NFL career because of how fast he played. And so, I mean, he was real close to 3 picks against Tampa Bay. Like he actually overran. He should have picked it. He was there way too early because he read it so fast. So he's a dangerous player. I would be watching that tape if I were Minnesota and being like, we're going to keep the ball away from this guy for sure.
Well, as I went through it, and I'm thinking, Jesse Bates and what he's capable of, and there were a lot of instances in the Bucs game, and I could see many instances Sunday night where the Vikings try to occupy the linebackers in coverage. So you pull up Divine Diablo or Caden Ellis and then try to wrap something in behind. But one of the worries that I would have in doing that is, like, you better make sure you're aware of those safeties flying down from the roof. And if you're J.J. McCarthy, you better be accurate in those instances, because if you're not, I guess, processing it and seeing it, it would worry me that Xavier Watts or Jesse Bates are sitting there at the ready.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely a concern, right? And just the Vikings offense in general, it's interesting. I mean, you talk about all the crossers that they run and things like that, and they can attack you horizontally in all these ways. And so how does Atlanta play it? Like, where are they willing to cut those crossers? How aggressive are they going to be coming down, given that they played really aggressive against Tampa? It had a lot of success early in the game. Baker missed some throws, I think, and then late in the game, the Bucs score the touchdown because of some of that aggressiveness. And so I think they feel like they can leave A.J. Terrell. They feel like he can match up with anyone. We'll find out. Like, Justin Jefferson didn't have his best game in week 1, and Justin Jefferson doesn't have bad games 2 games in a row. So I think this is going to be an awesome matchup. Terrell played great against Mike Evans. And over the years, those two have had tons of battles, and Mike Evans has won all those battles. But But Terrell's given him like a good quarter, good couple plays every time they play. This was the best. He played really well at the outset of the game, and then sort of at the end, Evans made some plays and had some opportunities and stuff. So I think he is a good player, and I think he's a player that's going to have a really strong year with some more stable coaching and more stable situation, and finally some talent around him. He's been like the only pro guy. Him and Bates have just been the only pro guys there for a little while in some of their lineup configurations. So I think there's going to be real tests here for McCarthy, like not to the level of Chicago's defense, in my opinion, in which people are going to say, well, you broke through against those guys. You should be able to figure out in this one too. Chicago fell apart down the stretch. They for sure did. I don't think there's any doubt about that watching that tape back. But I think with Atlanta, that's very possible for them too. Like I said, they have weaknesses, and McCarthy should be more comfortable in the pocket. So you really want to see the decision-making and him being able to play on time, I think, given that I don't think he'll be quite as sped up. I don't think they're capable of creating that kind of havoc in the backfield the way that Chicago might have even been able to with their schemes. So I think he will be a little more comfortable. You are talking about a group, I think, that's really opportunistic. So this is going to be a great game to measure where McCarthy's decision-making and IQ is at when he sort of has a little bit more time to get in rhythm and make plays. So it's a really fun matchup potentially for him, but I think that's also a good place for us to be able to value him. There was times against the Bears where I was like, all right, this just isn't a fair fight yet. Like, let's get him out of this game and get him on to the next. And then they won. It's always good to win games like that. But ultimately, I think this will be like a more appropriate test for him.
Another thing for me doing the study of the Falcons defense is, like, they stopped the Bucs run extremely well. Now, how much of the Bucs offensive line played a role in that? New coordinator, new schemes. And the Bucs did hit a couple gap schemes. Like, that did pop on the tape for me. But, you go through the Falcons front, and it's like Zach Harrison, Rook, Ororo, whose name I cannot pronounce. Arnold Ebiketie, this edge rusher, kind of flashed to me a couple of times. But why? Yeah. Because you look at the Bucs, and you study the Bucs. Why did they have such a hard time running the football? Because I do think that's going to be key for the Vikings to try to put JJ in optimal downs and distances.
Yeah, I think some of it is, the makeshift offensive line and just changing so much of where they were at and what they were comfortable with and stuff. I think that's honestly probably a big part of it, because you definitely at left guard, like Mike Jordan did not, it was a struggle for him, I think, and it wasn't like all synthesized. Everything wasn't synced up, I think, the way it is normally with the starters when you got three guys moving spots. It just wasn't quite as clean in terms of that stuff. And then they just didn't have the ball that long either. So, you start getting a little more desperate, you start pressing a little bit more, you start throwing the ball a little bit more. But I think you don't have opportunities to actually get in a rhythm running the ball, which matters too, I think, because a lot of the times those things will build on each other. And so I think some of those things could be the reason why. To me, I was kind of like, I still felt like they had a couple good runs here and there, but then there were some like detrimental plays too. So it was like, it felt more inconsistent than they couldn't have figured it out if they had decided to go that way throughout the course of the game. So I don't know. I think Atlanta is schematically going to play they're going to understand their weaknesses, and they're going to play to some of those weaknesses in terms of, we're going to be a disruptive team. We know we can't sit back and just play. So we're not that good. We're not the Eagles that won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Like, we're not that deep, or was in the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl in that defense, I guess. So like, we can't play that way. So we've got to press the issue a little bit. And so because of that, I think you're going to see they're going to fire guys, right? And so the Bucs are trying to get to the play action game, and I think that can be successful. And obviously there's not many better at that, if anybody, than KOC. And so I think there's some real things here to take advantage of, and to be able to test Atlanta. And when you see some of the stuff they're doing, it's like, what was this new look defense going to look like with, these guys are going to be on the line of scrimmage. Oh, great, we're going to play action. These guys are going to be firing at the snap, trying to fill gaps quick and just create disruption and just like smash into guys at the snap. Okay, we're going to work off of that, and we're going to go play action. We're going to throw it over their heads, and it's going to be tough for them in the intermediate areas of the field. And Tampa Bay tested there a lot, but it wasn't as much off the play action as I think Minnesota can do. So I think that they can definitely do some things to loosen them up a little bit. And then you look at their personnel too. It's not a team you want to be. You don't want to be right now without Darisaw dropping back constantly throughout the game. Justin School, is an interesting player. I know everybody in Minnesota probably wants his head right now because he gave up some sacks and didn't play.
The debut
and he
was
will
tough.
have. The debut was tough. but he actually he can be a really good run game contributor. And I know people are probably gonna be like, no way, but I watched him last year in Tampa Bay when he had to fill in for a couple games. Watched him in San Francisco. He's not a guy that you need to be true pass setting with. A bunch of times in some of the game situations, they had to do that, and it got exposed a little bit. You need to be careful with him in that regard, but he can pass set for you and hold his own if you're able to be in the play action world or the play action boot stuff or things like that. He isn't a player who's so bad technically he can't execute. He just does not have great traits or any overwhelming skill or strength or anything like that. So he can get attacked because of those things. But if you don't put him in positions to get exposed, I honestly do think he's an okay number 3 tackle. As far as number 3 tackles go around the league, you never want these guys to start, but when they have to. And then if you watch him in the run game, if you watch the tape from Tampa last year, he really does some good things. He can really get to the second level. He can rip through and get to the second level and get guys to the second level. The KOC struggle has always been that he did that part. Can he get it going? Can he get the run game going?
Yeah.
And can he get them in rhythm in the run game? And does he have enough arrows in the quiver in the run game? It's my only KOC gripe because he's one of my favorite coaches in the league. But I just wonder if there's enough on the menu for the run game. And there was in Tampa, and School thrived in the run game. He was pass protected. You still had to protect him a little bit. He held his own. The scheme helped him. They advantageous game situations. All that stuff matters when you're talking about a backup. They're never going to be just great in those tons of true pass situations. But if you can get him going in the run game, I really do think he can be a helpful player. And then that's where some of these other guys can thrive too. Will Fries can thrive there. He was awesome there in Indianapolis. You have quietly, I thought what was a really pretty clean debut with Kelly and Fries, and that being a really, really good sign. That is huge for them. They're having a good interior play, and Ryan Kelly's one of the smartest players in the entire NFL. So when you put him with McCarthy and you're trying to figure out some of these protections pre-snap, I think that's just a great combination for a young. It's why they brought him in for sure, but it's a great combination for a young quarterback to have a player like that. So obviously Fries and he and him have to stay healthy, but if they're able to do that this season, this can be a group that runs the football from a talent perspective really well. Kelly and Fries have been a part of really good groups running the football. School's been a part of really good groups. He was San Francisco and Tampa Bay, under Liam Cohen. Those are some of the best run schemes we've seen. So these guys have that in them. Can he, and Donovan Jackson, don't get me started on, I love Donovan Jackson pre-draft. So, it's just a group that can run the football well.
Donovan Jackson's debut was flawless, and I talked to him in the locker room the other day, and he's like, yeah, Grady Jarrett, I saw him play against the Texans years ago. I was just a fan, and I told him as the game gets going, I watched it. I'm like, what? And then he just shuts him down. It was unbelievably impressive debut from Donovan Jackson, and I think people here are extremely pumped about it, knowing what the path was with Ed Ingram a few years ago. So, yeah. You're right in talking about, I think, what this team can be, should be, needs to be from a run perspective. What was interesting as well, they got to a couple counters late in the game that sprung Jordan Mason, and Wes Phillips, the offensive coordinator, was like, those were huge. Wish we'd have gotten to some of them earlier. And it's somewhat of a segue for me of, this is a Falcons defense where you don't have a lot of inventory of what it's going to be with Raheem and Jeff Ulbrich. And so early on, they're probably going to have to make some adjustments and adapt. And so the speed with which they can do that on the fly with the quarterback in his second game, who just had a son born days ago without Christian Darrisaw, it will be interesting to see how muddy it is or isn't kind of as things get rolling Sunday night. I'll be very curious to see it.
Well, KOC is a smart offensive mind, and which is why I've always said, eventually he's going to look at the run game and be like, screw all this, man. I just watched Liam Cohen start a season, couldn't run the ball at all for 3 weeks trying to do this outside zone thing. I just watched Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, who are the kings of outside zone, move away from it, or at least not move away from it. They still do some of it, but the menu is way bigger. They're pulling people. They're moving people. They're changing the angles. They're bringing tight ends. They're adding gaps. And he's got to, being as young and as smart as he is and as humble as he is, be able to take in new information, I just think he's got to be at the point where he's all right, we're going to show totally new things in the run game this year. And then how they build, that's the other thing. He's such a play action guy. Why you can build so much play action stuff off of the gap pull stuff that you can do if you can get in that world. And they did the other night. I think it was a 50-50 split or something like that in their gap zone runs. And so it was just man, when they start hitting that stuff, I'm like, this is it, dude. Like, this can be, this is what McCarthy needs. This is what your offense needs. You need to be able, there's so many easy buttons you can get to off this stuff. Not to mention, I don't know if you, I mean, we don't have time to get into this show, but like the difference in screen game attack from the teams that are more gap power oriented and so the run stuff, the teams that live in the counter world, like all these teams. Tampa Bay, what best screen team? Arizona, best screen team. Washington, best screen team last season. All those teams are big, gap, power. We're going to pull guys. We're going to run counter. We're going to trap you. The menu's massive on the run game. You can do so many more things in the screen game and so many more easy buttons for your quarterback in that area of the field if you're able to have that stuff on the run game in your run game. So I just think KOC is going to look and be like, well, McVay's going all duo and Shanahan's pulling people and doing all kinds of stuff on the perimeter with Trent Williams and all this stuff. Like, I'm one of these guys. LaFleur's doing it. Like, and some of these guys all still run zone. I mean, it's not like zone is not a part of it. They do. They run it. I mean, it still can work, and for sure, it's not like it's. But it's just the elements that gap stuff allows you to get to, and you could see the other night. It's like they have this stuff in the bag. That's what was so exciting to me. It's like they can get to some of this stuff. And now it's just a matter of can you lean into it more and more, I think. And, you're still going to keep some of your staple stuff. And these guys can do that stuff too. But I just think that's the part to me. If the Vikings offense is going to be better than it was last year, I think it's unlikely that McCarthy over the course of a season plays better than Darnold played last year. But Darnold was great last year in the regular season. We all know how it ended. But, I think that part's probably likely. But if they can take some of the pressure off of him by being able to be really efficient, first, second down, not put him in those game situations where it's like, yeah, you're just dropping back, brother. Good luck. And it's great they got a W out of the situation the other night. Not where they want to be for sure. And so they're just going to have to think through some of those things from a play sequencing perspective.
She's Jen, the ultimate Vikings fan.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Vikings Jan Show fan show. My special guest today is Jared Allen. So, Jared, who you got for the Vikings game this week?
Minnesota Vikings.
Me too. So that's our show. We'd like to thank our sponsor, the Minnesota Lottery, who reminds you this could be your year. Play the new
Vikings
Scratch Game for a shot at $100,000, game tickets, and more. Minnesota Lottery. I'm in. Must be 18 or older to play.
Kevin even said after the game, he's like, we could have run it more, could have handed it to Jordan Mason more in the first half. And he admitted, that's where, for him, that's still growth. So to your point, the openness with it. We've talked so much offense, and it's great. We're balancing Ollie's conversation about the defense. It's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I will say, and I wanted to get to Penix and just your thoughts on Penix, because it's going to be fascinating for me to watch Brian Flores try to game plan for Michael Penix and how he approaches that. I'm very curious to see what the plan will look like. I couldn't believe, one of the last pass Penix threw to Kadero Hodge, thought that was a dime. I don't really know why that wasn't caught and why the Falcons didn't win the game. It was very odd watching that playback. What did you think of him?
The Mercedes-Benz lights are insane. Players hate them. Like Buka said, he almost dropped the touchdown.
It's unbelievable. It's $1 billion stadium. Get some lights where the guys can see. What did you think of Penix in week one? What do you think of him against Brian Flores, a guy who will mix it as much as he will on the back end?
I think he's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I think he's pretty good. And I'm kicking myself. Pre-draft, I was like, man, this guy's cool. Watching him in college, I was like, this guy's cool. What a cool player. He didn't move. He's a pocket guy. He ripped it down the field. But I was like, the offense is kind of fake. It's not really what you're going to be doing in the NFL necessarily. And I was like, he's older. He just, he doesn't move. It felt like there was maybe some missing ingredients. But I was like, the player's cool. I hope he hits. And now watching him in the league, you're like, oh, wait a minute. He's totally comfortable throwing any area of the field, first of all, so that's not an issue. He's way more mobile than he was in college. I shouldn't say he's more mobile. He just uses his mobility way more. In college, he just didn't have to do it as much, but he uses his mobility, and it's really effective. He's got enough twitch. He's not going to impress anybody long speed or anything like that, but he's got enough twitch to kind of get out of there when he needs to. And he's real. The biggest thing is he's just so quick at recognizing everything. Tampa Bay, if you watch that game shouldn't have been close. They really wrecked Atlanta up front. They just screwed up everything they were trying to do, and he just made every right decision. He made every right decision with the ball. He got it out. He sacked one time in that game. Pressured 22 times. Sacked once in that game.
Wow.
And it wasn't like he was breaking tackles. Guys were missing tackles for the most part. No, he was just getting the ball before they could sack him. He was like, oh, they're coming? Here's it is. Boom, right here. His ability to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through the progression for a guy in his 4th NFL game was like jaw on the floor stuff to me. I couldn't believe. And people are going to say, well, he was 0 for 7 for whatever it was, so 20-plus air yard throws. Like, come on, dog. Like, watch the game and tell me like that this guy was in any way deterred to throw the ball down the field. He wasn't. He was just having to make the right decision and go underneath all the time because these guys were getting killed up front. I mean, probably 6 TE twists. Like, the tackle goes first, the end comes around. Unpicked, like, not picked up. He's just like facing it. In the NFL, that happens like if you get one a game, the other team's like on the sideline like, this should never happen. Are you kidding me? Like, we're fixing this right now. They couldn't figure it out. I mean, they could not figure it out. And so he was just getting teed off on, and he had no help. The guys were not making tough catches for him enough at the time, end of the game. I think Drake London's a great player. He didn't make tough catches. So all that to say, Penix just ability to shoulder a huge load in his 4th NFL game against a defense that not only I think looked really good in that game, but was really well designed to find their weak spot, which was Servicia Dennis, and to continue to attack him and know where he was every single time he was in trouble. It was just a really impressive poise game and then a really impressive mental processing game from Penix. Everybody knew Greedy had the arm. That was really never a question. It was the other stuff. He could play at NFL speeds, and then if he, how the mobility would affect him. And I think he's really answering both of those questions.
Yeah, I mean, watching the film, it was like, I mean, there's anticipation throws to Drake London, comeback routes there, and I couldn't believe you said that. Like, Hassan Reddick was like wrecking the game. I mean, I don't even know his age right now. I think he's above 30, but at one point he was retired and done. And now I'm like, what is this guy is explosive. It's interesting to hear you mention the offensive line because they're going up against a defense and a defensive front that is pretty dynamic. You might have heard with Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, Jonathan Grenard, and Andrew Van Ginkel will miss the game, but Dallas Turner is really coming on in the eyes of a lot of people. And I can imagine the speed around Elijah Wilkinson at right tackle feels like a spot for Dallas Turner to maybe provide somewhat of an introduction. But I do want to ask you this. I watched the game. The Falcons motioned 51 times. I was curious, and I just want to know your thoughts on this. Like, some of these motions, it was like receivers out here, and they're just motioning 3 steps to the left. And I'm trying to figure out, are they just widening the field, making it easy, the picture easier? Is there purpose to these motions? What did you think of the design of it?
It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, oh my, like some of the stuff was cool. I was like, okay, bringing Charlie Werner across and insert blocks. Like, yeah, I was like, okay, they're probably going to be one of these teams that is just super zone team. So, like, adding things to that in terms of, like, where the first block is going to go and then I'm sure they're going to do this. Maybe they did it in the game. I can't remember. The Bucs are so dominant against their run game that I don't remember. But they, like, then you use that guy as, like, the decoy or you get to some of the wind back stuff. Maybe you can get to some of that stuff, too. So some of it, I think, has a purpose for their run game. Yeah, the pass game stuff is interesting. Like they did one where they like motion, what the heck is Ray McCloud across the formation and then just have him run straight into a wheel route, sort of like Miami Dolphins-esque, where I'm like, oh, Zach Robinson's been in the bag a little bit, and they didn't get anything off the play. The Bucs were kind of all over it, but I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, so they're definitely trying to use motion to get advantages at the snap, and so you're thinking, well, okay, then they have great team speed. Well, not really. Now, Darnell Mooney's playing this week, and I think that makes a big difference for them. I could see him doing things off like that is not a Casey Washington's game. That is not Drake London's game. And they tried to make it Ray McCloud's game, and like there are times where he did some stuff, but he's not a guy that's going to be a high volume guy for you. But Mooney can be. So I'm kind of reserving judgment a little bit to see sort of like what that gets to for them and like what kind of stuff that opens up for them. I wonder if they're the type of offense that if they can play that way, if they have the personnel to fit what they're trying to do in terms of the motion stuff. So there was some good stuff. There was some like, I don't know, this might be a little bit overkill. And like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Is this motion for the sake of motion? All he talks about that a lot. And so it'll be, to see this larger sample size of that, I think will be interesting, especially to a team that's like, we're still trying to figure out what they're going to look like under Michael Penix. And, sometimes the game script situation, when they couldn't run the ball, we don't get as great a feel for that. So maybe we'll get a greater feel for some of that stuff in this game if they're able to have any success running the ball. Maybe you'll see what that looks like as they stay in those neutral game situations.
Yeah, and I just bring it up. I mean, in the U.S. Bank Stadium environment that it's going to be Sunday night, you just wonder, can they time that stuff up? Will that lead to pre-snap penalties and set them back to where it's even more difficult? Is there anything else with this game that just you're like, I'm curious to see this, or I'm interested in this, or that player aspect of it? I don't know. I mean, we've gone through all of it.
Well, the front stuff I think is just so interesting to me because Ollie and I talked about this on Tuesday or Thursday spot. I don't remember, but just like our constant amazement with Brian Flores and just like his ability to like, oh yeah, Eric Wilson, we're going to turn, like you were like about to not make the team in Green Bay. Like we're going to find a place for you. You're going to come in and play the game of your life here for a couple snaps and, stuff like that when you lose Blake Cashman and just watching people drop and then watching other guys just kind of come right into the picture. And just, I've been wondering for a while if Jay Ward was ever going to do anything in the league. He makes a big play in the game, obviously. And so, yeah, I just like think that he's one of the best at doing that. So I've kind of passed the point a little bit where I'm like, is this secondary just good enough? Like, I don't know. Like, we'll find out, I guess, by the end of it all. But, like, they could look bad for a quarter, as you know, and then, like, they still find it just because the scheme continues to, like, put them in optimal situations and kind of cover up their weaknesses. So, to me, what I'm really – I don't think there might not be, like, this crazy low floor or super high ceiling with the back seven in a lot of ways. But the front is really the key to me for everything for Minnesota this season. If Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, A, stay healthy and on the wrong side of 30, and B, on the wrong side of 30, look like they did the other night, look like their prime selves, wow, does that change what Flores can do. Now, what he will do, I don't know what he will do, but I know Jonathan Grenard is probably one of the most underrated players in the league. I absolutely love that guy. I know Van Ginkel is going to Van Gink the game a few times, and you know what I mean by that, and Vikings fans know what I mean by that when he's out there. And so the real questions to me is, what do you get from Dallas Turner? Can Dallas Turner, maybe people are like, oh, so he could still be this full-time great player someday. That's possible. I'm not ruling that out. They don't need him to be that this season. They might not even be that at any point in his rookie contract, at least in Minnesota. But they do need him to absolutely be a difference-making pass rusher this season if they're going to have different things on the menu. Flores is one of the best, most innovative, aggressive, all of these things. Everything everybody says about him, 100% true. That's the reputation. That's what he is. The one thing he can't do is close the season. He can't finish it because he doesn't have the horses. Just doesn't have enough of the horses. And that was the big move they made this offseason. There's no way, if you're telling me there's synergy between the front office and the coaching staff, which I believe there is in Minnesota. Quezzy's done some very questionable things, but I believe they work together from my observations and everything I've heard, is that this is a symbiotic thing with the coaches and with Quezzy. If Quezzy is saying going out and getting Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave at this point in their careers, to me, that's because they sat down and they said, what do we need to do to finish the season stronger than we have? Well, A, the quarterback spot and the offense, not lose your star tackle. That would be great. But from things we can control, we need defensively to have another button to push that isn't quite as aggressive and insane as everything we do in the regular season. People, you've watched the NBA and playoffs are different than regular season. There's just no doubt about it. Okay, it's different from a schematic. What you can get away with in the regular season, you can't get away with the playoffs. That's not as true in the NFL, but you're crazy if you don't think that is somewhat true in the NFL. The level of competition is just better in the playoffs, and specifically the quarterbacks are just better in the playoffs. You just can't live the way Brian Flores wants to live that much by the sword. And by that, I mean like a Darth Maul double-sided lightsaber type of sword. Like, this guy is out there every game just wilding. And so if you're going to live that way all the time, in the regular season, that might burn you once or twice. In the playoffs, you're just not making it all the way through. So what's the button they can push to make it all the way through? It's Jonathan Allen, it's Javon Hargrave, it's Dallas Turner. If those, you know what you're getting from Grenard, I feel is reliable. I think he's as reliable player as there is. Van Ginkel, again, not this unbelievable 1v1 pass rusher, doesn't matter. He'll Van Gink the game and he'll find a way to produce. But if Hargrave and Allen are beasts still, and they could stay out there the whole time, and they were beasts the other night, if that's the case, and then Dallas Turner gives you, anything in the four-man rush world, all of a sudden now you don't have to be as crazy as you've been. You don't have to you have another button where you can push it. You could say, we're just going 4 down and go, and we're just going to be in coverage. We're just going to be out of, we're just going to blanket things, cover windows, all that kind of stuff. You can change things up in a way you weren't able to before and not put yourself as at risk, especially in the middle of the field to big plays and things like that. So that to me is like this game, next game, we'll just be watching it over and over again. And this is a game that if that's going to happen, they should dominate. The Bucs, super aggressive. Bulls isn't quite Flores. Nobody's quite Flores, but Bulls is like up there every year, like in terms of like the sim pressure, all that stuff. This was the lowest pressure rate that he had in a while, like in terms of, or sorry, not pressure rate, blitz rate that he had in a while. And it was because he said, this season, he's committed. We got to be able to rush with 4. All these guys who are super aggressive, they're going to stay aggressive. But all these coaches who are super aggressive, Vance Joseph and Jonathan Gannon, especially Joseph did it a couple years ago. If you look what Jonathan Gannon, what Todd Bowles, and what Brian Flores did this offseason, what did they do? Flores added Hargrave and Allen. Bowles added Reddick, which was massive, and then they hope Cansey's healthy. Reddick changes the math for them for sure. Then they drafted 2 guys. Walker got hurt, but Roberts is out there. You look at what Gannon did. I mean, they're like 12 deep on the D-line if they can ever get healthy.
Calais, Josh Sweat.
Yeah. Dennis Gardeck was their best rusher last year. It was just insane. So they now have like given themselves more option, more on the menu. That's what everybody's trying to do on both sides of the ball, but especially defensively. And to me, that's the big question with Minnesota. That's my extremely long-winded answer to you is like the story for me on their defense all year is just going to be how good is the other button when they need to push it? Like how effective is it? And then how deep is the rotation of guys that they can rely on to do that stuff with?
That's awesome. And it was interesting. Brian Flores earlier this week was like, not sure if we can blitz this guy because of how quick he gets the ball out. Whether that was him playing 4D chess and trying to, deke whoever in Atlanta's building who's probably watching that press conference. I would not put it past Brian Flores, but I also could see if they just go the path of trying to let the 4-man rush win and just mix it on the back end. I mean, they were throwing some 3 safety stuff out there last week. They were doing some quarter half stuff, pulled back from the Ed Donatel trash bin. I mean, there was a lot going on, and there might be Sunday night, so it'll be fun. John, thanks for doing it. Really appreciate you spending the time. It was a blast. That's why I listen to you and Ollie as much as I do, because I learned a heck of a lot listening, and I appreciate it. But thanks for hopping on, man. Really, it was a blast. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me, and I also just want to say I think one of the things that will change the game, and I know I don't want to be on my soapbox too much about my media stuff. If you listen to me, you know I really care about like the media space. Like I know it's extremely nerdy, and you're supposed to just like do your record time and then log off, but I really care. Like I think it being good really matters to me, and so like knowing that there's beat people out there that are covering the team every day that like that can get really tough and monotonous and all that kind of stuff, but like to be able to like say, okay, no, I'm going to help people understand the game in a greater way, and I'm going to dive a layer deeper, and I'm going to do everything I can to study and to stay engaged and to say, what else can I learn? What else can I know? And then be able to give people that in your content. That says a lot about how seriously you take the job. So I just appreciate that. I hope more people continue to do that too, so that we can continue to advance what coverage should look like. Don't let the mainstream people have it all. Don't let the national people have it all. The local people are where it's at. And so I just appreciate what you're doing for sure.
No, thank you for saying that. It's just being a sicko of knowing that this game is endlessly fascinating and being very curious to try to somehow understand it. Thanks, John. Talk soon, man.
Absolutely, man.
And that'll do it for episode 112 of the Alec Lewis Show. Grateful to John for spending some time with us and going through what will be a fascinating matchup on Sunday night. So many elements to it. Would not be surprised if Dallas Turner has a big one. But yeah, it's gonna be a very fun one. That building, US Bank Stadium on Sunday night, will be electric beyond belief. When JJ McCarthy runs out of the tunnel, when Adam Thielen runs out of the tunnel, when Jared Allen does the Gallahorn, it's going to be nuts. And I cannot wait to be in the building for it. Like we said at the top, a couple things. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Rate, review, Follow us if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. The show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area with great people who care about this team. And then just so you don't miss it, go right now, follow us on Instagram at Alec Lewis Show, where we're going to do a live Q&A on Sunday afternoon, maybe right when I get to the stadium, talk a little bit about this game, take some live questions from you guys. Will be fun to do that on the fly, so please go check that out. Thank you guys for being here. We will talk to you guys early next week. Week 2 of the NFL season. Let's get ready to rock. Here we go.